whenever you're ready.
See you.
I'm not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go.
I'll turn up the volume a little bit. That was the topic given to us by a group of high school people that started a Zoom group sometime last summer. Okay, I'd like to start with a hymn. It's For the Beauty of the Earth. The original words were by Methodist minister F.S. Pierpoint in 1864. In this version, luckily with UU corrected lyrics, the piano and vocals were performed by Lillian Wang of Star King UU Church in Fairview, California. This song is one of the first hymns I remember and sang as a young UU Sunday schooler. It touched my deep love and celebration of nature, human compassion, and music. It's still one of my favorites. So hopefully you can just play that now. Can you go higher?
Yep.
Better. Thanks.
For the beauty of the earth, for the splendor of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies, source of all truth is our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of ear and eye, for the heart and mind's delight, for the mystic harmony, linking sense to sound and sight, source of all true lyrics, this our hymn of grateful praise. For the wonder of eternity of the day and night, hill and vale, tree and flower, sun and moon, stars and moonlight, source of all truth, is our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of human care, sister, brother, parent, child, for the kinship we all share, for all gentle thoughts and mild, source of all true lyrics, this our hymn of grateful praise.
In August, I was invited to join a small group of 9 high school classmates, graduates of the class of 66, a monthly Zoom meeting. This was my second meeting, the group's fourth, and while I knew who they all were, I was only good friends with 3 of them, plus one I dated twice in 5th grade, and then I didn't date again until college. The topic was given to us by one of our Zoom leaders, Leanne Starr. Chuck had read the topic. I didn't know Leanne until our first meeting. I didn't know her well. I haven't really spoke to her. I knew who she was. She was one of the top students. We quickly became email buddies after the previous meeting, where we shared transcendent musical experiences. We shared our personal history of growing up in Park Forest, Illinois. Sadly, she passed away 2 weeks ago on January 23rd. I deeply mourned her passing and I'm surprised at my level of sorrow. It happened so quickly. It made a lasting impression on me. I'm grateful to have experienced her caring, loving, and intelligent presence. No one expected her to be even sick. She was a vibrant young person at heart. The Zoom group that night unexpectedly was made up of 3 UUs and 5 people of Jewish heritage out of the 8 we had. Only 2 of them were actively practicing Judaism. One of them was Leanne, who was active in the last couple of decades. One became a 20-year practicing Quaker. One was a follower of Centers of Spiritual Living, also known as Science of the Mind, and one who doesn't attend church but follows Jewish cultural traditions and performs in a klezmer band. Some of you may remember his piece, Gleaming Menorahs, from our Christmas sermon. I wrote up about a 2-page response that emailed it to the group and then summarized it was my turn to talk. I unfortunately shared this fact with the group about a month ago, sharing joys and concerns. My joy was seeing my daughter's reaction to hearing details of my spiritual journey and discovering how similar our spiritual instincts are. I agreed to Chuck's request to share this with the congregation. I quickly realized it needed a heavy rework for all UUUs. I guess that's too many U's. So here's my story.
Okay,
Yes?
no, nothing.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. My grandma Susie wanted me baptized in the Presbyterian Church as an infant, this marking my official start of my religious journey. My father, who grew up in the Presbyterian Church, played the organ there in high school. He was a serious student of the Bible, a true believer, until slogging it out in the foxholes of World War II, or in reality, on the beaches of Ulithi Island in the Western Pacific. I've heard that there are no atheists in foxholes. He left the Marines and declared himself a born-again atheist. He was and still remained a deeply spiritual person, while he no longer took the Bible stories as a historical collection of the Word of God. He felt very comfortable with the local UU church where we grew up. I first attended the Park Forest Unitarian Church when I was about 7, continuing in its many locations as the church grew, starting at a grade school a few blocks from my house, then on to an elementary school the year I started 4th grade there. Then while in high school, the church actually purchased their first full building. It was a former Jewish temple. I thoroughly enjoyed my early UU experience. Many social outlets, weekend square dancing. They had their own group. A choir was started and I discovered my love of singing there. Our church sponsored a cabin at a summer camp where I spent a week for several summers. Camp Reinberg in Palatine, Illinois provided a wonderful multiracial and multicultural experience. Here I first came to love spiritual songs sung and taught to us by a couple of Black church cabins. Our small church choir had a chance to sing with a large group of other choirs at the First Unitarian Church of Chicago in Hyde Park when I was about 12. The church is a large stone cathedral building built in 1897. Just being in that environment was exciting. The day of the performance was almost a blur. The huge church filled to capacity, plus a large group of about 10 child choirs from the Chicago area. On the first piece, the singers entered the church from 2 doors and filled out the periphery of the cathedral singing a Baroque canon, Jubilate Deo. Very quickly, this became a transcendent experience. I finally heard this in the environment that it was written for. After the 3rd and 4th parts of the round started, the complexity and beauty, the volume, the background acoustics transported me in time and space, and I felt I was experiencing something unexplainably beautiful. There's something very comforting, calming about singing, and I'm also sure playing music. A large group of people, similar to attending a live performance, but you're adding the energy as well as the energy from the music. I'll have Chuck play Jubilate Deo, sung by 3 young people. And it's a simple song, so if you want to join in any of the 3 parts and listen to the beauty of this round.
So we're still at camp, and I'm going to be uploading these like all out of order because I don't know. I'm doing them all at camp, and I'm going to upload them when I get back to Bangkok. Now you know. Page 195 in Sacred Rounds and Chants. This is Jubilate.
Be joyful unto God. Alleluia.
That's a guess. The real translation's been lost. Nobody's really sure what this means anymore.
Oh. Jubilate Deo, jubilate Deo.
We'll do it once through, and then we'll do parts.
Forgot.
First take.
Jubilate Deo, jubilate Deo. Alleluia. Jubilate Deo, jubilate Deo, jubilate Deo.
Great. I couldn't hear anybody, but I'm sure you were singing hard. Right? Okay. Next, in high school, our full-time minister, Reverend Bob Hoagland, started a youth group. It was very educational, but it was really fun. We visited many other many other church denominations in the Park Forest area to widen our scope. I became aware that for the most important issues and values, we found more common ground than diversity. Reverend Hoagland was very influential in forming my core belief system at this time. He was a devout pacifist and humanitarian and strong advocate for each of us to follow our own spiritual journey. He counseled one of my Zoom buddies, which I found out later, to be a Vietnam War conscientious objector. Sadly, my dad was instrumental in trying unsuccessfully to keep Reverend Hoagland from being fired my senior year of high school. This was a rather traumatic loss, as Reverend Hoagland was a very dynamic speaker, very personable. He was not one to be bullied by a few disgruntled members. He was also very well versed in religious teachings and dogma. But I always felt he presented the proper balance of spiritual and intellectual points of view. Later, my dad explained that a very few early founders of the church felt that their influence was being diminished, and they put their needs ahead of the now quickly growing church. From my early Sunday school days, I learned UUs have a very open belief system, which focuses on personal insight, using traditions and structures from many religions and cultural sources. And as we heard from Lori a few months ago, I'm going to take a couple from her. We're an ancient strand of Christians that believe that Jesus was human and not divine. Our heritage believes that reason and influence is an important part of faith, a belief in the love of God rather than God's damnation. Like many UUs, I generally ask bold questions and refuse to follow movements or leaders where I don't share those beliefs. From experience, many UUs are devout, I'll pronounce it atheists, those who don't follow a static theism or belief system, not necessarily those that don't believe in God or a spiritual entity. Many are open to a wide range of religious, spiritual experiences, such as paganism, native indigenous practices, etc. Some are very comfortable with our early Christian roots, some not so much, appearing to be in a battle to overcome previous unpleasant dogmatic upbringing, skeptical of the spiritual and more comfortable with intellectual journeys. Most, in my opinion, appear to balance these areas successfully. Since high school, my religious journey has been wide-ranging and varied in intensity. In college, I only attended a couple of church services with roommates for a date or two, and from memory, only one was a UU fellowship. To be honest, I didn't think much about religion, but I guess I followed my spiritual journey based on my early experiences. I feel that people are basically good at heart, indeed, and only stray from this due to traumatic experience, past or present. In junior year of college, I hit a crisis of consciousness. The Vietnam War was raging, protests on campus, no longer able to stay in physics as a major. I missed most of my classes along with many people. General depression and a scary drug experience led me to flunk half of my classes. I went home to heal. At this point, religion was farthest thing from my mind. After about a year that included a course or two in a junior college that I didn't finish, I changed my major to psychology back at Northern Illinois, where I started. Again, dropped the course of work. It didn't work for me. And then I changed my major again to biology. Luckily, at that point, my world changed dramatically when I met a person who truly changed my life. Sue and I both felt something that was spiritual in nature that now lasted for 51 years. Our connection gave me confidence to change majors to agronomy, crop science, change schools to the University of Wisconsin in Madison, get my master's in horticulture, to find a fulfilling career as a research agronomist in Minnesota and help raise a family. We were married 7 years later in Madison by the local UU minister. We had not been to the UU church. We're surprised to find that person was Reverend Hoagland. He had sent me a birthday card since he was my minister in high school and continued up until he passed away several years after we were married. At our ceremony, he was accosted by a zealot boyfriend of one of Sue's sisters, who was unhappy that he didn't hear the words Jesus or God anywhere in our ceremony. He was quickly taken to task and soon learned much more about the Bible than he was equipped to handle. After he learned that Reverend Hoagland had taken a sabbatical at the Vatican to translate, he translated ancient religious documents, a true student of religion. After graduation, my new job took us to Minnesota, and we finally got back to a UU church when my son was 5. We attended Minnesota Valley Unitarian Fellowship in Bloomington. I joined a very talented choir and was suddenly thrust in my first solo concert. Even though I'd been in many choirs over the years, as many as 4 in 1 year, I'd never had to do a solo. The lead male part of a musical that the very talented choir director and pianist wrote and produced, he had to leave for the weekend for a family emergency. The day of the performance, I was asked to fill in and nervously accepted. I insisted I needed to hold the sheet music since I knew the music but not the words. I was told I did well. I have almost no memory of the performance, as I pretty much had an out-of-body experience where I actually became the original soloist, voice and all. Never been able to sing that register again. A couple of years later, the church hired their first full-time minister, Reverend Laurie Bushbaum, whose sermons and program I thoroughly enjoyed. Laurie was someone who felt we should practice our stated beliefs and principles and open up to new cultural and racial diversity experiences. She invited a Native American drum group to the church. The small group filled our small church with rhythmic heartbeat of drums and wailing voice of drummers. I was quickly transported the plains of Minnesota to a time before European invasions. And it was really true. I still have that experience every once in a while, thinking of the Native Americans who lived here before us. And I'll have Chuck listen to a piece by Eulalie. It's Sue and my favorite Native American vocal group. I again experienced musical transcendence while our UU church choir was invited to sing at a Black Baptist church in South Minneapolis. After Lori invited them to sing at ours, the majority of the Baptist service was music. They had 2 or 3 preachers, and they did a lot of singing. So did the congregation. We heard their choir, which was amazing. After our choir was finished performing, we were in the audience, and we were surrounded by the congregation, singing in multiple harmonies. We joined in, and I felt totally accepted and surrounded by love. I'll have Chuck insert a gospel piece at the end of the presentation. We get the experience of a gospel piece. After about 3 years, Sue and I were in the annual meeting of the Bloomington Church, and shocked to find that the church board simply set a budget that didn't include a minister's salary. Lori Bushbaum was now a jobless minister needing a new home, and we needed a new church. I met with the district UU minister, Reverend Harry Green, in Minneapolis to learn the processes needed to establish a new UU church on the south side. He asked us to meet with the original members of this church, who were losing their minister at the time. So with a number of people from the Bloomington Church who were also upset about losing Lori, about 20 people in all, we joined together and moved to Burnsville. I started out by being the chair of the combined church, was also the program director, excitedly initiated a small choir group. Sue became the RE director, and we printed the weekly bulletins. We were busy. After about 6 months, we grew and were able to hire Lori. After 2 years, exhausted, and I had winter job responsibilities on top of my insane hours I worked during the summer, I asked to be replaced as the chair. I no longer had the energy. We had grown to over 50 members, and a while after the new chair was seated, the minister was let go. I was no longer on the board, and I wasn't aware of the issues that caused the decision. This was now my third experience for a minister that I felt had brought meaningful experiences that expanded my consciousness to diverse fields of cultural, religious, musical areas was fired. I felt that I lost my connection with what I felt was the safe and growing spiritual home. All 3 cases, the church had grown significantly with the ministerial presence. I felt they were responsible for most of the growth. This was a devastating experience, and one that has kept me from being an active member in another smaller UU church for many years. The spark from being a member of a spiritual community was always there, but so was the apprehension. 20 years ago, I lost my 22-year-long career, started up a new one in the medical device field. This, along with several family health issues, took most of my time and focus. I realized that based on my early belief system, I was very comfortable with inward exploration, to tap into some creative force I felt is in all of us and everything around us, a strong sense of wholeness. This is not a new age idea in origin, but a very old view. This is an indigenous worldview. I've been interested in Native American stories and ceremonies and belief systems for many years, some all being active in UU churches. I've also done a lot of reading about the indigenous American and their contributions in our constitutional government, in agriculture, medicine, and many spiritual practices. I invited the Episcopal minister, also the Mdewakanton Dakota holy man from our local group here in Prior Lake, Gary Cavender, to our church in Burnsville, where he delighted us with the oral stories of his grandparents. The stories were very entertaining, funny, and all with important lessons in relationships among people, animals, and the natural world. His grandparents taught Gary an indigenous worldview, that the highest authority for all decisions comes from personal reflection of lived experiences. This feels very familiar and compatible with UU principles. They also believe and practice living in balance and communing with nature and the universe. There's a growing movement that implores us to go back to our indigenous worldview roots for our survival, where we personally communicate with the natural world around us to keep us from destroying the very environment that sustains us. This worldview states we can no longer continue living completely in our dominant worldview, where we so easily accept authority from others, but must rely now on community, self-oriented authorship, self-authorship. From a young age, I believed that we were part of a universal life force that connects us with everything around us, including non-living matter, celestial objects. I once read that physics and religion are beginning to meld together. When we die, we just change form. Whatever we were when living is not lost. Energy that moved within us can never be lost. It just moves to another form. Many Native American tribes believe that the Creator is so mysterious and have the humility and honesty to admit that they would never be able to fully understand or describe a static creation story. If I accept my responsibility to remain engaged and connected to the world, then I'm always learning something new, which can change my understanding of life. So for me, the question of how or what created us can change, but will always be a mystery. And for that, I'm very relieved to accept. Life is and will always be a great mystery. So I'll conclude this with one more musical piece. The summer of sophomore year in college, I was always on the road Sunday between 11 and 12 p.m., traveling from my first girlfriend's home to a northern suburb of Chicago, from a northern suburb of Chicago to my home 30 miles south of Chicago. This was the time for WLS AM radio's Gospel Hour, one of my favorite radio shows. My favorite gospel song was and still is "Oh Happy Day" by the Edwin Hawkins Singers. We'll now I'll listen to a more recent rendition. Some of you may recognize this.
Oh, happy day.
See, now you got it.
La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la.
Okay, you guys, relax, okay? Take a deep breath. Be fine, don't worry. You ready?
Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy
Come here.
day.
Come here and stand over here.
When Jesus washed. When Jesus washed. When Jesus washed. When Jesus washed. Jesus washed. When Jesus washed. Washed my sins away.
Y'all gonna have to do better than this.
Oh, happy day.
All right, you guys, take your cue from me.
La 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 la
Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. When Jesus washed. When Jesus washed.
So that's all I got.